Kuriakose Elias College, or simply KE College, is located in Mannanam, Kerala, India. It was officially established back in the year 1964 by the CMI fathers and is named after our heavenly patron, Saint Kuriakose Elias Chavra, who is the co-founder of the Congregation of the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate. Now, let's come to the social work department of KE College. It was basically established back in the year 2004. Since then, the college has been vibrantly leading in both curricular and co-curricular activities such as fieldwork in social work education. Now, before going to the main program, I would like to provide you with certain instructions regarding the program. Now, as we are conducting the program through Zoom platform, it will end automatically in 40 minutes. After that, a new link for the continuation of the webinar will be shared immediately in the WhatsApp group, and everyone is requested to join that link quickly. Next, everyone should mute their microphone while the webinar is being conducted. Okay, please do that. In case, if any of you have any doubts or queries in between, you can directly post the questions in the chat box, and there will also be a question and answer session in the end. The feedback forms link for those participants attending the webinar through the Zoom platform will be shared immediately in the chat box after the entire program is over. And the e-certificates will also be provided to only those who submit the feedback form within half an hour. And finally, the entire program will be uploaded in YouTube later, and the YouTube link will be shared in the WhatsApp group as soon as possible. Now, for moving on to the official program, I warmly invite Mrs. Elizabeth Alexander, HOD of Social Work Department, KE College, Mannanam, for providing the welcome speech. Please proceed, Elizabeth, ma'am.
Thank you, Milan. Good afternoon to one and all. PG Department of Social Work at KE College, Mannanam is one of the leading social work institutions in Kerala under CMA management. The department, since its inception in 2004 onwards, initiates a lot of academic and socially committed activities, which includes national and international conferences. This year, even in lockdown period also, the department initiated so many online certificate programs which we had national level participation. Again, on this day, we are organizing an international webinar on the topic social work profession and research scope and challenges. So now I would like to welcome the respected persons who are present here. Dr. Bridget Paul, Principal KE College Mannanam, is a person with a lot of social commitment, and she herself engaged in a lot of social development initiatives. We are truly blessed to have her as a principal. Thank you, ma'am, for your great support. Welcome to this webinar and to inaugurate it. The most important part of this webinar is the session itself. To handle this session on social work profession and research, we have with us the most eminent personality and one of my good friend, Dr. Rajendra Baikady. Dr. Rajendra Baikady is a social work educator and researcher. He is the winner of Golda Meir postdoctoral fellowship at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, and Confucius Studies Understanding China fellowship at Shandong University, People's Republic of China. And he was one of the 20 selected candidates for the short-term research award by the Ministry of Education, Government of Taiwan, and conducted research at National Chengchi University, Taiwan. Dr. Rajendra Baikady was awarded the prestigious INLAX Foundation Research Travel Grants 2015 and Indian Council of Social Science Research Collect Data Abroad Scholarship 2015 for conducting his research at Shandong University, China. His most recent books are Social Welfare Policies and Programs in South Asia, Building Sustainable Communities, Civil Society Responsibility in South Asia, and Palgray Handbook for Global Social Work Education. He is co-editing the journal Special Issues of Social Work and Society. Presently, he is the Paul Berwald School of Social Work and Social Welfare, Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel, and conducting research under the supervision of Professor John Gall. In addition to this, Dr. Baikady is also affiliated to Department of Social Work, School of Humanities, University of Johannesburg, South Africa, as Senior Research Associate. So it's my pleasure to share with you that he is in the editorial board of International Journal of Community and Social Development. Dear Baikady sir, we are indeed grateful for graciously and readily accepting our invitation, and thank you for your valuable time which is spending with us. So in the name of KE College Mannanam, Kerala, India, and PhD Department of Social Work, And all the participants who are present here, welcome sir to this international webinar.
Thank you.
Today we have with us our Vice Principal, Father Xavier CMI. He is very systematic and dedicated person. Thank you so much, dear Father, for your guidance and welcome to this webinar. So this time I would like to welcome our Administrator, Father Joseph Origale, and our Course Coordinator, Major Johnny Thomas sir. Welcome to this seminar. And Pradipta Kadambari ma'am, the founder and principal of Kadambari Memorial College, Nepal is present here. So we extend you a warm welcome from the bottom of our heart, ma'am. Welcome to this international webinar. And Shakti Prabha ma'am, a very energetic professional social worker.
Okay, Milan, you can continue.
Okay, miss.
Milan, okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, Elizabeth ma'am, for the wonderful welcome speech. And now, for moving on to the next session, I wholeheartedly invite the respected principal of KE College Mannanam, Dr. Bridget Paul, for the inauguration of the program. Okay. You may proceed, Bridget ma'am.
Good afternoon all. Respected resource person of the day, Dr. Rajendra Baikady, Vice Principal of our college, Reverend Dr. Xavier CS, the Department of Social Work, Elizabeth, all other faculty members and their participants, student representative Milan. I would like to begin by quoting Mahatma Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. In today's world, where people are becoming more and more self-centered, where materialism is growing, where people lack human values and sentiments, there are a group of people who stand apart. They are the social workers. Unlike any other profession, social work demands a lot of understanding, compassion, tenderness, attentiveness. The scope of social work is increasing day by day. Rehabilitation, counseling, community policing, environmental protection, etc., etc. We all know the list is pretty long. I'm extremely proud to say that Social Work Department of K College Mannanam is the best department of the college in terms of innovative activities and programs it undertakes, and that too on a regular basis. I congratulate Head of the Department, Elizabeth, Alexander, other faculty members and students of for their continuous effort and making the college proud. Now they have come forward with an international webinar on social work profession and research by a very eminent researcher, Dr. Baikady. On behalf of K College fraternity, I once again welcome you, sir. I'm sure that all participants of this webinar is eagerly waiting to, for your talk. With these words, I conclude and hereby declare the international webinar on social work, profession and research is as inaugurated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the wonderful inauguration, Bridget ma'am. For moving on to the next session, I heartily invite the Vice Principal of KE College, Mannanam, Father Dr. Xavier CS CMI, for the felicitation. Okay, Father, you may proceed, please.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you. Very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to one and all again to this webinar. It's my privilege and honor to greet and felicitate you all on this August afternoon and on this August moment. First of all, I take the opportunity to congratulate our social work department. As we all know, it's a very vibrant and a very noble department. They are conducting seminars and other programs day by day. I congratulate you all very personally, especially the head of the department, Dr. Elizabeth, and all the faculties there in the social work department. And I am entering into my duty, respected principal of K College Mannanam, Dr. Bridget Paul, and head of the Department of Social Work, Dr. Elizabeth, and all the faculties, and especially my dear Rajendra Baikady. I very personally invite you and welcome you to the community of K College, and we are very glad to hear from you today. And I again congratulate the department to selecting such a topic, social work profession and research, its scope and challenge. As we all know, the social workers provide social, emotional, and physical development services to the needy and also strive to modify the environment for the interest of them. And to do this effectively, social workers work with parents, teachers, schools, and communities. And as far as we are concerned, they are striving with in the scenario of higher education sector, and it's a very relevant topic. I once again congratulate and felicitate you all, and those who are participating in this seminar, in this webinar. I again welcome you all, and may God bless you, and I wish you all good luck and best wishes, and thank you for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Father Xavier, for such beautiful and loving words. Now, finally, let us move on to the major moment which we all have been waiting for since the beginning. For that, I enthusiastically invite the most eminent personality of the day, which is our chief guest, Dr. Rajendra Baikady, who is well renowned for his huge and remarkable achievements for taking over the platform to conduct this effective webinar. So you may proceed, Rajendra sir, please.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for the principal and all the administrative heads of the institution, and also for Elizabeth Madam for giving me this opportunity, and for all the participants who are there. I was told that there were many people, but of course I don't know how you selected out of that 100 people. So anyway, the people who are inside here for 100 people, so I hope we will have a fruitful discussion. And also I would like to say that whatever I bring in here is from my experience and the research which I conducted at my doctoral level. And of course, it's like a kind of learning which we do together. So that I'm sure there are people who are much experienced than me in teaching. So definitely I look forward from learning from them. So let us move on. I have prepared some slides to keep the discussion in line. So these are the context, like, because when we discuss about social work in India or social work, we have to look at like where it started, how it started and all. So I'll just give an overview of that to set the background for our later on discussion. Like it started with charity. Like wherever we look at, social work started with charity institutions, or offering services to the people on the basis of charity. So later on it was introduced as a professional education, then professional practice. So when we look at that, the origin was in charity, and we brought in ideas from the West and we retained them. Now also we have those all ideas and all those theories and all those practice models which we brought in from the West. We still now have them. And of course, there is a whole lot of issues which are going on, which I will discuss in the later part, like how we are trying to come out of this Western-centric social work practices or teaching which we have right now in India. And starting from one institution which was started in 1936, right now we have almost around 600 institutions, even though we don't get the complete database of these 600 institutions in one place, but it's the literature somewhere says that it's around 600 institutions which we have. And of course there are some books, and even if you just find them in the website, you will find some institutions. Of course they're not completely full-fledged programs, most of them. So I haven't put them as School of Social Work here because I don't think so they all qualify as a School of Social Work or even as to call as a Department of Social Work. There are some programs which of course doesn't have all those requirements which need to be called it as a program, complete social work programs. But around we have 600 right now. So it is, of course, 80 years, whatever we have developed is almost 600 institutions. And also, and it's 8 decades. So because we all right now looking at that, it's 8 decades. And what we have achieved in these 8 decades, just looking back from starting from till today, gives an overview, like an idea that what are the things we have achieved in this field, social work. Of course, there are so many things which we supposed to achieve, but we haven't done. So that's what I'll discuss in the next part of this. So there were 2 review committees, 1960 and 1975, which report was submitted. And of course, both of them have identified there are a lot of issues which social work need to address in the later part for the development of the profession, development as a profession, and to excel social work as a profession like any other profession. But of course, there are many things which are achieved, but of course, at the same time, there are some aspects which are not at all completely achieved. So that is where we stand again now in this even 8 decades. There are a whole lot of things which we need to address by ourselves, and to set a strong professional background. So when we call it as profession. And also to be clear that I'll discuss about education, practice, and research together, because what I feel is that these all 3 are interconnected. And leaving apart education, I don't think so we have to go for profession, because of course the education is the one which creates the professionals. So that is where the connection comes. So that's why I interlink all these 3, education, research, and profession. So there were 2 review committees, then of course the second review committee, and after that there were no review committees which were constituted for social work education to look at the present status of social work education. So since the inception of the social work in India, that was 1936, discussions have been in progress on the development of social work education, like specific to the Indian socio-cultural and political context. Of course, but we haven't yet achieved all those things till now. So there is still discussion is going on in on the basis of indigenization. So, and also there is a whole lot of like the things which are surrounding around this indigenization, and of course we haven't achieved all those things. Need to develop our own cultural specific, and this indigenization concept is not only specific to India. Of course, I studied about China. My thesis was a comparative study between India and China, where I studied, of course, China is also looking at, Chinese scholars is saying that China need to develop a social work which is very cultural specific to China's China and the nationality of China. So that is where everywhere there is, even if you look into Taiwan, Taiwan also, like social workers, they also say that they have to develop something because it is the requirement or it is the need. We need to have something which is cultural specific, because which we bring from outside and which doesn't fit into our society, because we are serving our people in our country. So that is where the need we have to address their issues. So, however, discussion is going on, but nothing much has been achieved in that area. So there is a whole lot of things which need to be done. So before discussing the challenges, I think I have to look into the bright side of social work, because let us first look at the positive parts, then go back to the negative part of social work, because there are so many things which we haven't yet achieved and we have to achieve. But there are some things which we can feel proud of our social work. Like as of now, social work education is spread across the country. Like second review committee highlighted that social work education was not there in Jammu and Kashmir and the part of Punjab. There were no social work education when second review committee was constituted. And second review committee suggested that social work education need to be spread across the country. So now if we look at, as I said, 600 schools of social work, if we look at, there are social work departments across the country. So there is no part which is left behind, of course. Like we have in Jammu Kashmir, we have central universities and they have introduced social work from, I think, since 2013-14, that batches they have started introduced. And of course, they are doing relatively good in line with the new universities or new programs which are introduced. And also existence in all field. Like, I think there is no field where social work is not serving in India. We are everywhere. But when it comes to the recognition, we don't have something which is specifically for social work. We can work anywhere, because when I say this, I think we can't say that in India social workers are unemployed. There is a lot of employment opportunity for social workers, but what we demand or what we need is, or what we expect is, something which is a dignified working condition for social workers particularly. Like this is, I am an MSW or I am a BSW, so this is something which is specific for me. So this is which is kept for me. So that kind of a professional recognition which we don't have right now. If you look at other countries, there are social work which was introduced much later than India, even half of the year later than India, but they have achieved all those recognitions. They have achieved all those recognition from the society and even from the administration. So associations, of course, we have associations which are working relatively good, both in the state level. There are, of course, excellent associations which are working in some states, and national level, of course, we have. And of course, I'll discuss about that in the later part, what actually we expect from this association to help us to strengthen our profession. And we do have aspirants to study social work. There is no depth of students for social work as of I know, because there are a lot of students who are coming. Maybe number has reduced because we have increased the number of school. That is the reason, because there is a lot of opportunities now. Previously, there were no many schools. So there were a whole lot of students coming to the limited number of institutions which were available. Now, as I said, there are a lot of institutions, and there are opportunities for the students are more. So there is, we feel like number of students who are coming for social work is reduced. So it's not actually the scenario. There are students who are coming to study social work. So that is something which is which we should feel proud, because there are still recognition for social work as a course, or there are students who are interested to study, even though we don't have a well recognized professional status, but students are ready to study social work. But of course, there is a dropout from these students too. Even the second review committee recognized that there is a dropout, which actually happens at the postgraduate level, undergraduate level, and even in the diploma programs. So there is percentage which is given in that report. If we go through that, we will get the idea. And to go back to the context, which I want to focus here is on important thing is like Bodhi pointed out that it looks like the social work education in India has reached a state where old is nearing death and the new is far from being born. So why I like this is because to some extent we feel like this is what actually happening, because whatever was introduced in the early, like we now only start criticizing them rather than we are pointing out what is actually happening with those, or what we learned from that 80 years or that 8 decades. That is also quite important, I think. Even bringing back from the well-known educators, even in the global level, when we start criticizing westernization, we should also keep it in mind that what we learned from that, because the origin was from there, the starting was from there, and why can't we learn something from there rather than just criticizing it, everything is wrong. So that is where I think we have to look into what new, what we have developed for the next. So it is like something which is, there is a gap. The beginning was nearing to an end, and new something which is not yet born. So there is a gap. That is what makes social workers to think about their future, and that is where I think we need to focus more. And that is where the people in power, so need to think of that, like how they can take up this situation, and how we can improve our professional identities in that context. And also I think we need to work a lot with the government, which again I have a point there where I will explain again. And also the other scholars who noted that social work educators in India face substantial challenges in designing curriculum to prepare students for social work practice in 21st century. The problem is that whatever we have initiated in the beginning, right now, the question is that, are we able to prepare social work students, or the graduates, who are able to address the 21st century issues? Is our curriculum is completely equipped to prepare them? Are we preparing them so that they can address all the issues which are happening in society? Because if you look at the social problems, the concept of social problems is changing, and of course the social work service service settings are changing. It is not the same which we had 8 decades ago. So there is a whole lot of changes which are happening. And are we equipping our curriculum in that way? Are we revising that the curriculum in that way? So I don't think so there is a national level curriculum revision which happens, because of course the institutions have freedom to do that, and how frequently the institution does that, on the basis of what we do those changes, and how we bring changes, based on what background, or based on what evidences we bring those changes. These are the things which we need to look into, because of course there is something which is missing links between the expected and whatever we are exploring. So there is because when students complete their graduation and when they go to service or they go to practice, there is a gap which we can find. So that is where we need to focus again, and that is where the requirement of social work, which right now, or the need of the day, what I feel. And also bringing back from my own study, this was recently published. I don't know any of you have gone through that or not, but anyway, I'll just give an explanation of that, because I thought it's maybe quite interesting, because it comes from the qualitative study. So one study where I found is problem of definition, which is the basic need of our requirement for the social work as a practice, as an education, and even for the research field. Because when I say problem of definition, we have global definition for social work, which is well prepared and well suitable for, of course, all the countries which are having social work. But at the same time, when I wrote this article, I received, I don't know, madam, maybe they're in this session, Pradipta Kadambari from Kadambari School of Social Work, Nepal. She wrote me a mail saying that we have to have a definition for the South Asian region, because of course we all come together as a South Asian region. There is a lot of similarities which we face. There is a lot of issues which we face are similar. So we need to have a definition which is much relevant to the South Asian region, in line with the global definition whichever we have. And what the problem with definition is that we just give the definition practices whatever we do. So that is where we fail. Like, rather than just saying that social work is helping the people to help themselves, of course it's a very, very famous saying which we identify ourselves, and we are happy for that. But at the same time, we need to define that which is the specific place for us. where we fit in the larger society, and what actually we are capable of doing. So that is where the need which comes, like especially in India, if we look at, we need to develop that. That is the requirement, and that as per my knowledge, that is the educators, because I say it is educators because we are the people who have power. We, in the sense, the educators who are there in the positions, who are the people who have power, and changing changing should start from there. Of course, I don't say that all the other stakeholders don't have any power, but of course, along with all those stakeholders, educators need to take that into considerations, which is very important one. I think there are a lot of senior educators who have contributed a lot to social work in these last 8 decades, and of course, we need these development of, before when we go for a professional recognition. And also, lack of a regulatory framework and diversity among schools. This is not something new, I know, because there is lot last couple of years, this was again and again told by everybody, every scholar who studies about social work education in India or social work profession in India. This is the one point which comes there everywhere. But again, looking at the failure, why we were not able to develop this regulatory framework, and why there is a whole lot of diversity among the schools. This diversity is good, of course. We need that diversity in terms of curriculum, not entire curriculum, of course. There should be some part which is specific, cultural specific, or the area specific to that particular area. But there should be something which is similar for all the schools of social work in India. That's what brings the team as together. Otherwise, of course, we all stand apart, like separate. So I learned something from this school. Mine is entirely different understanding. The another one learned from another school. There is a whole lot of, because when we go to the field, we like practice, we start facing this problem. So there is something which need to be a regulatory framework, and which need to deal with this diversity of the schools. There should be diversity. I'm not saying that there should be similar, everything should be similar, but there are some issues which need to be similar. Then diversity should be maintained in some areas which are actually required, as I said, curriculum. So there is one important part where some part of the curriculum should be diverse, should be maintained with some diversity specific to that particular area. And lack of professional identity, which is another discussed issue for almost the last some decades, but nothing happened in that area, of course. And that is the major issue, what I feel, because that is where we are losing our social workers from social work field, because of course, why they don't practice, or why they come to social work, and why they drop from social work and go back. I'm sure there is social work educators and they will have lot of such experience. I think 2-3 days back, one of the students who I taught for a short term messaged me saying that, sir, I'm joining some management field because I think social work is not fit for me, because I don't have opportunities in social work. So I just said good luck, because I felt like I cannot do anything being sitting here, and because of course I could have told him that you have opportunities. Of course, we can do all this motivating things, but at the same time, there is a whole lot of other issues comes when they try for getting something, but when they don't get expected things, then of course it demotivates the students. So that is where something we need to be quite careful as an educators, and that is where identity it gets important, and identity crisis. And also we say, like as I said, which begin with the charity, and we stick to charity still now, because there is a whole lot of practice which comes is like social work means it is something which is not very professional one. And of course, a whole lot of things changed in the society, but this particular context which didn't change. And we brought in lot from the West, but we didn't brought in the attitude of treating social worker from the West. That's what I feel particularly, because why social work in the West or the developed countries is developed or well recognized is that when there is a problem, they approach a counselor or a social worker rather than talking to a friend. And we have a cultural context which friend is more friendly to me, and friend is more confidential to me rather than a social worker. So that is where we need to work. That is the gap where we need to work. I'm not saying that we need to bring the cultural change. Of course, we like that kind of an environment which we say are uniqueness in India, but there is something which in between we need to work. That is the reason which, of course, we may not be getting the expected treatment or expected respect from the society or expected identity from the society. So that is where we have to look into, and also grassroots interventions and lack of global perspective, which is something which there is a whole lot of issues which are going on. As I said, we are trying to develop indigenization or Indian model of social work to address our own issues and our own problems in our country. That's well and good, because as I said, all the countries are developing their own cultural specific social work, and that is the need of the day, or that is the requirement. But at the same time, we have to also acknowledge, as I said, the global perspectives on social work. So what is happening in the other part of the world, what is happening in other countries in social work. So that is what something which is required to learn, because we cannot completely isolate ourselves. We cannot only criticize the system which we have right now, but at the same time we must start acknowledging whatever we have got from there. At the same time, we need to start developing our own culturally specific social work. So this is what the perspectives from the social work students in India, who says that we have a lot of grassroots interventions. Of course, we go to the communities, we do all those things, but at the same time there is a lack of global perspective, because we cannot restrict our social workers to only India, because we are in globalized world and everything is connected. So we cannot say that of course now, just like we cannot go back to the system which there was no connections at all, that kind of a situation which we cannot imagine in the present or in the future society. So that's where we need. And also teacher-centric pedagogy, or lack of students' perspective, which is quite more in the institutions. Some of the institutions, there are only few institutions, if we study in India, I think, where a well combination of teacher and students participation in teaching and learning. Other all, of course, I think, because we come from a kind of background where a teacher is centric and the students are the learners. So where the students don't get much opportunities to bring in their ideas. So that is where we have to work out again somewhere, because of course that is where the development of students happens, starts from there. Professional development starts from there. The classrooms are the best places where students learn a whole lot of things, not only theories, of course, their individual capacities, their leadership capacities or leadership qualities, which starts from there. The discussions and debates which happens in the classrooms, which brings a lot of learning to the students. That is where some institutions which are missing those, which need to be taken care by our education system, because it has direct connection with our professional identities, whatever we have right now or whatever we are trying to develop. And also lack of support from the government in standardization and professionalization of social work. When I say this, because we are trying to be apolitical in most of the situations, because we social workers are, I mean to say that we are political, of course, because there is no individual who can say that he is an apolitical, I think, because the moment we start questioning something, we become a political, and of course that comes with us. But at the same time, when we hear what I say political is the connections with the government is something which we haven't worked out till now, or because wherever we look at social work is well established, there is a good connection between the government and the social work. Of course, there are fear that when we go into the government hands, then there is a control which comes from the government. If you look at for example, is Chinese social work is in the hands of government, where everything is controlled by the government. But of course, they have a well standard compared to us, because they have only 30 years of of history in social work, but their work is recognized by the government. Social work is a government work there or government job there, even though it is hired by the civil society organization, but it's considered as a government employment. But we don't have that for 80 years. That is where I think that I'm not saying that we should completely go to the hands of the government, or this should not be not leaving all our values and principles and all those things, but we have to find out something, a cordial relationship with our government where we work. Because professional recognition we cannot achieve without the support of the government or without the support of the administration. That is the must thing which we have to work on. And I'm sure the social work educators who are senior here, of course, much known, much experienced than me, who know that why we are not able to establish a council even in these 80 years. So what actually preventing us from establishing a council? So there is something which we have to work out there. So that's where I say we need to find out that gap, what actually preventing us from working in relationship with the government or a cordial relationship with the government, and we have to find out there. And what the time is demanding from our profession, or like what we need at the right time, at the moment what we need. I have put again education and profession, as I said, both are interlinked, and which one prepares for the another one. So like we definitely need a review. As I said, there were 2 review committees which have constituted earlier and which have given their reports. But of course, after that, there were no. So there is a long gap. And after that, and of course, if you ask me what is the outcome of that, what I think is a national level data we will get, what is actually happening, rather than a small studies which is conducted by someone. If there is a review committee which comes and which conducts this review in a very thorough way, then of course we will get a complete data or a complete information. What is the present situation? What actually prevents from us getting the professional recognition? What people actually say? Because when they go and talk to the different stakeholders, that's what they did in the second review committee. So of course they come to know that what actually the stakeholders expect. Students, practitioners, educators, and there are civil society organizations, all these para-professionals. So all these, the data we will get or the information we will get. So that is where I think we have to have a, definitely we need a review committee, which will be the 3rd review committee for the social work education and practice both. Of course, when it comes to the education, it touches the part of practice as well. And also network among the institutions, which is actually lacking behind, maybe because we have introduced social work as a courses in the private colleges, because there is a kind of competition which it brings. That may be the reason there is no very good connection between the institution. But I think the organizations, associations which we have need to develop this. Connection between the institutions, learning from each other, sharing information, sharing the literatures, all these things can be possible through this institutional networking, which is actually a need for the development of both education and the profession. And also bringing in lived experiences, because there are so many social work educators who left India and who are actually excelling other part of the world. And I think if we bring back their experiences, of course they all educated in India, majority of them were educated in India. That too, what we say, the social work education, when it was introduced from the West, or when it was introduced, of course all those are educated in that particular system. But can we bring something from them, utilizing it or not utilizing, but bringing a different perspective from them will definitely help, I think, because how they look as an outsider, being an insider for some time and learning here, and now how they see it as an outsider, which is something interesting, what I feel which need to be done in Indian education, social work education. And also alumnus, like the student who pass out from us, we have hardly heard those students' perspective, I feel, because apart from, I have seen something is happening in Kerala. There is something called alumni, something I have seen a same kind of a webinar which is happening there, alumni collectives or something. So I'm not very sure about that. Anything, there is something which is happening, which is bringing back alumni's perspectives on social work education. And I do remember discussing with my teacher in Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She's the one who worked a lot on that, and she's the one who put forward so many ideas on that, I think. Other than that, there are many institutions where there is no database for their alumni, where they go, what they do. Because if you look at, if you want to learn about your program, then the best feedback you get is from your alumni, because what they learn from you and what they face in the field, that inputs will definitely help us to improve a lot. That inputs will definitely give us a lot of understanding, which we may not get as an educator, which we may not get from any other person, rather than we will get only we'll get it from an alumnus. So that is where something which we need to look into. And also I was thinking, like, why can't we have a associations which is coming together with alumni? Because I know that we have a lot of associations which are actually not working properly, or which are, of course, there is in question, like what they're doing, how they're working and all. But there is something which I think we need to explore in that area. So bringing their experiences, something I was thinking, like, why can't we have an association for alumni immediately after pass out? For 5 years they'll be member of that, and later on they move into the national associations, whichever we have, they can take the membership of that. Of course, the question is that, don't ask me how many people will get experience membership in that before, because we don't have membership in our present existing associations, but we have to work out something. So there is a dark part for everything, or there is a drawback for everything, but of course there is some space where we can work also. And also responsive to social issues and social problems, to what extent we are responding, education, to what extent we are responding to the social issues and social problems. So this is something which we need to take care of, I think, because we need to look into that. Because when recently there was a whole lot of issues happening with migrant workers, I'm not very sure how many institutions we responded to that. Especially, I say we have a specialization called human resource management, and how many of our departments responded to that. I'm not saying that we have to go to field and we have to do something, but of course, how many of us are very much, like, at least discussion, policy level, writing something, or policy level influence which we brought in. That is something which I think we need to think of, and how we can update our courses. So how well we prepare our graduates to respond to these issues. It is, I'm not saying that only that specialization is particular for that response. Of course, it's the responsibility of the entire social work. But in that, of course, they are the one who study about labor welfare, or labor laws, labor rules, and all those things. So what is the response of that? So that is where I think we have to think of how much we are responding to social issues or social problems. And also need an association, which I already explained there. So in the beginning itself, so which performs well, or which brings in all people together. So we have associations, as I said, but we don't have for an education. Of course, it was there as we Association for School of Social Work in India, which of course seen a depth somewhere in between, and of course it took a rebirth, and of course again it is dysfunctional now. But I think to develop education, we need that, and we need to study why it happened. Of course, it is like people who are not coming together, or there is a whole lot of issues with consensus between the educators and the social workers. So which are the things which we need to deal with? But personally, I believe we need an association which is for the social work education particularly, and one for the practice, as we have IASSW and IFSW. One focuses on education and one focuses on practice, which works together for many of the aspects. So profession, if you look at like prioritization of goals to be achieved, because what actually we need to do. Because why I say this is the immediate needs which we need to do is like, as per my knowledge or as per my learning and understanding, whatever, we immediately need a professional recognition which we have to put forward. There is a whole lot of things which happen, but I don't know where it has gone again, because there is nothing much happening after that. But this is what happened in the early years also. That is where we need to look into, because without recognizing our own identities, we cannot do much of the things in the society. That is where we say like we are doing social work, we are selfless people, whatever it may be, but to do all those things, we need an identity. You have to say that you are a social worker, and to say that social worker, we need an identity. So that is where professional identity which gives us. So that is the prioritization we need to do. So what things need to be done one by one? Why can't we have a 5-year plan for social work in India? Because there is a 5-year plan for everything. Of course, that 5-year plan will come only when we have a recognition body, of course, I think, because something which need to be worked out. Because now the question is that who will do that 5-year plan and who will implement that 5-year plan? Because we don't have the national platform where everybody comes together. So how many thousands of social workers are there, or students are there, passport people are there? All those people come together. I don't think we have a platform there. So that is where I think the council, if it comes to, then it will perform that function, I think, so that it helps us to develop step-by-step social work education. That is what we see in the other parts where social work is well developed. And the council, of course, I explained it. And why I say this council is required again, like the bridging the gap with something which is important aspects. As I said, we have a whole lot of issues within the country when we look into social work, and which is affecting the education and the practice both again. And that bridging the gap, we say we are the bridges between the people and the community and the resources, people and the resources. But there is a gap between us only, like we the people who don't come together as social workers. That is something which we need to take into consideration, and which is something which is which needs a serious relook, and also extending the boundaries. So rather than restricting ourselves to some specific areas or some specific like particular areas or aspects, we have to extend our boundaries. Like there is a whole lot we can learn from the entire world. Of course, I think this COVID has given so many opportunities, but how we take forward from there is more important, because of course there are opportunities earlier also, but of course we didn't utilize much which we have learned from there. And also beyond metro regions and few interest groups which we need to think of, I think, because social work education in India or social work practice in India is not restricted to some metro cities or the institutions which are established in metro cities. Of course, there is a gap between the rural institutions and metro institutions which are in the urban areas. But at the same time, when we develop this, we have to think like there is that is why I said again we need a council, because to bring in that kind of a bridging between these institutions. Otherwise, this gap will remain, because it is not only in social work. I think it is there in everything. Normal people's life, there is a gap between these two. But to bring in these two together, to give resources to equally. So this is where, because right now if we see whatever happens in these metro cities, they're privileged people. We agree that they're privileged in many sense, but at the same time, there are a lot of institutions which are in the south or which are in the rural areas, which are not very well connected with the connected in any sense. But of course, they are doing good. They're working in communities. They're doing a whole lot of involvement with the villagers, community people, and all those things. So that need to be taken into consideration, and that need to be brought into the mainstream. So that is something which is important, and also making ourselves to be heard, like, because both at social, societal, and policy level, because nobody is there to hear social worker right now. That is the reality of Indian society, because we say a whole lot of things. I'm a social worker, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm influencing policy, everything. But the reality is that there is no actual impact which we, of course we are making impact, but that is not recognized properly. So that is where, in order to recognize that, I think we need to do a policy level influence. There are happening, but involvement of social workers in policy, it is not that directly we have to do policies, like you have to be a committee member to framing something, or you have to be in a committee for doing something. So policy influence is also possible through a whole lot of things which we do as writers, a whole lot of things we do as researchers, and a whole lot of things which we do as an educator. So all these things comes into policy. It is not only that which we have which we have to be in the committee, then only we can do that. Of course, influencing is possible from all other sides also. So before just going ahead, may I please request the time is, can you just inform about the time? Somebody can alert me on the time.
Sir, the time is currently 2:56 p.m. in here.
Yeah.
But you can continue. You can continue, sir.
Yeah, okay. So social work in India needs to find its space within the global society. I explained, like, because the good thing is that we say it should be Indian origin, Indian culture specific, responding to Indian problems, Indian society, everything is right. But at the same time, we need to have a global recognition too as an Indian, because right now what is discussed and how we have to develop that. So we have to go in line with the other countries which have social work education and practice systems. I'm not saying that we have to replicate them directly, or we have to bring in something from there and do that, but we have to learn from there. So we have to find that space. That is something which is important. And also social work education need to focus more in terms of specific skills training for its learner, which is also said by Siddiqui in 2001, who said importance is that skill development. Why we are not able to develop our profession? Because we are not well equipping our postgraduates with the skills which they actually require. And that's what I said earlier also. Rather than saying that we do everything, why can't we find something which is can only done by a social worker, or which can be done by social worker better than other professionals? So, because right now anybody can do those things. It is like NGOs, if you are saying NGOs can be run by anybody. It is not that a social work graduates is they only can do that an NGO, or running projects can be done by anyone. It is not that only specific for the social workers. So what skills actually we are teaching them? Are they project managers? There is a difference between social worker as a project manager and other stream social project manager who comes. So these are the things which we think we need to focus much on that. And also student space, like giving specific space with the curriculum, and construct their own learning and practice agenda, which is actually required. I'm not touching it on because I already explained it earlier, that students' perspectives is important. And also social workers must participate more in the policy formulation and planning process, which was told much earlier in 1973. But if you look at right now also, we have a lot of issues again with the policy formulation. We are not much involved in policy practices. Even it is not only in India, I think even in developed countries, if you look into because recently I was reviewing a book which was written by Professor John Gall, which says that policy formulation, social workers' role in policy formulation, and which says that in some countries it's only the whatever is told to them, they are doing it. It is not that everywhere social work is well recognized with policy planning or policy influencing or policy making. But I think in Indian context, we have to develop that skill for our graduates, because they are the ones who go and practice tomorrow. And also in terms of educators, I think we haven't done much work on that area, influencing the policy, which need to be, apart from a few names or few institutions which are working on that area. Other than that, there is a whole lot of gap again that need to be taken care. And also social workers in India need to position themselves in the larger service sector, because I was looking at some criticisms there. Why need to we compare with nurses, doctors, lawyers, and so on? But in order to get the identity, we need to position ourselves something as social workers. So because right now we don't have that identity is not given to social work. So in order to give that identity, we need to have, it is not that we are saying nurses, educators, or lawyers are equal to social workers, but something like that we also need. Some such kind of an identity which we also need for social work. So that is where we have to head for our professional recognition, professional identity, or formulation of council. All those things come in again. And there is a need for social workers in India to go a step further and define core expertise. That's what I said. Why only a social worker can do this? That we need to define. And how only a social worker can do this? Why can't be done by others? Others can do this, but not as good as social worker. That is where something we need to define ourselves. That is where something we have to bring in our space within the larger society, saying that this is what social work. This is what social work is all about, and this is what social work, rather than putting our hands everywhere, or rather than representing ourselves in every area, because that is what actually distracting, or that is what actually making us, of course we have a larger scope. There is nothing that you can say that which prevents social worker. That's what I said. There is no unemployment for social workers in that sense. Of course, he can go and do anything, whatever you want to do, he can do, because he fits everywhere. But there is no specific place where only he can fit. So that is what we have to develop, and that is what we need to do as for the purpose of developing our profession, or for the development of our professional identity. And of course, I want to focus on indigenization of social work, because which is much discussed and much written since long back, of course. And of course, when I say indigenization, I'm quite sure that what indigenization we need to bring, and what we actually look into, is that the concept which are given by the people which we actually develop, we need to develop. And also, as I said, rather than just criticizing, let us look at what we learned from there. Because if we criticize, like I think we are criticizing the entire 80 decades which we have done, of course. So let us learn from that 8 decades what we done, and then transition from this to the indigenization will be something which is useful, and which is something learning experience which is fruitful, what I personally feel. So an adaptation of Western social work practice to local needs. Of course, we have that right now in our hand. No need to bring it from somewhere, but we have to develop adaptation to that, where there is a lot of criticism that we are practicing it as it is. Even I remember when talking to the students in some institutions, few institutions, of course, well-known institutions, some students feel that we bring in literature directly from the Western countries, and which we will not, we don't even contextualize it to the Indian situation, and we use it as it is in our teaching or assignment or research or whatever it is. So that is where we have to look into, but it is not complete rejection, of course. Bringing learning from that and adopting it to our system. And also a process in which local political and socio-cultural context is shaping the implementation of social work practice. This is what I said. We have to develop a social work which is in line with our political system, in line with our cultural system, and distancing from our political system, or distancing from our political participation. I don't think we can develop social work, because without that support, our system is like that. When it is democracy, there is a whole lot of scope for social work to develop and to flourish. But actually, we have to find out there which gap, where there is a gap, or where there is something which we haven't done till now. And I'm sure there are so a lot of social work educators who are in politics now, who entered political positions. There are a lot of alumni, if not in other states, I'm very sure they're in Kerala. There are a lot of social work alumni who are in active political field. So from why can't we learn from them? Why can't we take the help of their help to develop our profession when we need the government support, or when the government need to recognize the profession? So that is where we need to relook into that concepts again, I think. And of course, developing indigenization, which is in line with our system. And of course, when I say that it is the present prevailing system, whatever it is, without any other, like, because whatever the system which we have, like we have a constitution, we have a right concept and all these things, so line with that working. And also a reflection of the professional imperialism and colonialism that undergrades the adaptation of Western social models. Like, of course, we have to look into that. We have to discuss that issues much when we discuss about indigenization, rather than only criticizing again. And also re-engineering of skills and techniques used in micro and macro social work models according to the local structure and practice experiences. So that's what I said, need is to develop skills of social work graduates, and for what we prepare them and how we prepare them, what skills we give it to them. At the end of the day, when they go out of our programs, what is something uniqueness which they have. So that is where we have to develop, because we cannot bring it from the outside. We cannot bring that concept from the West, because the skill which they learn and the skill which we learn are entirely different to their cultural specific realities. So that is where we have to look into. And also the power and politics here, I say, is like something which we are a team of educators who are working on this, which I personally feel which something is important or interesting, what I said. And also I think in Indian context, we haven't done much on this area, because when I say power and politics, there is a whole lot of things comes in. It's not the politics only, the politics which we know, the political activities or something. Like social work in India is keeping away from political participation completely, which is also said, which was already said by Siddiqui again. And of course I explained it. And an attitudinal change in people in power and position, which I say this because to bring in changes, we need this actually, attitudinal changes in the people in power and position. Why I say this, and as I explained earlier, the changes can be initiated by those people. It is like everybody can influence for the change, but changes need to be initiated by those people, and in line, in association with all the other stakeholders. Even students play a major role, parents play a major role, administration of the institutions play a major role, everybody, paraprofessionals, everyone has their own role. But at the same time, the people who are in the positions need to consider those, and they need to take initiative for the changes. That is where the council, the dream of council will come true, or the dream of getting a professional recognition will come true when this transition happens or this happens. And also we need, are we really serving the larger community? Which is a question we need to ask ourselves, I think, because as I said, there are a lot of people who are in position or in power who are working for the social work, and we need to relook once again. Are we looking for the larger community, or have we restricted ourselves to some particular areas? Are we reaching the entire country's social work community or social work fraternity, or is it not reachable to some people? So that is something which we need to re-look into, because that's what I think which is actually hindering the growth of social work in India, both education and practice. And that is where we need to focus a bit, and we need to find out some solutions or something which we can do for that. And I was told, like, the scopes which we have to see. I think for the research I have put some points. I hope some social work students and scholars, if they are there, I hope they will find this quite important or interesting, I think. So for me, it looks quite interesting, I think. A few areas that need exploration in Indian context particularly is, there is a need to study social workers' experience in terms of dignity and social work condition. I'm not aware, or I'm not sure that there are any studies which are particularly happened on this area. or like I'm saying, there may be small studies in a particular context related, but what I feel is there is something which is needed in the national level where the social workers say that what is the dignity, what actually feels them for working as social workers. There are a lot of studies, particularly in China, I know, because I studied about China. They have done so many studies there, and through that, how they have influenced their policies. To influence social work related policy, profession related policy, definitely we need these kind of studies which are required. So in terms of dignity and work conditions which we need to do, and also why a lot of social work graduates don't remain as social workers, why there is a dropout, why can't we talk to those people, where they go, like what they do after dropping out from social work. I don't think so we have such kind of a database, or we have such kind of a information which is available for us. So that is something which is interesting, because we can learn from them what makes them to go away from social work. That actually gives us an idea where we have to develop, or where we have to improve, and where it is not that my concern is not there somebody who is going away from social work, because the thing is that when he learns social work, when he learns the principles of and values of social work, wherever he go, he will practice it. Which I've seen in their website. Let us see what they bring out. These studies bring out. They have something called Impress, which Impress or something. I think so. It is Impress. I hope so. If sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrongly, but that is what that was not there in the beginning. ICSSR used to give only a small amount of scholarship for the student. Apart from that, there was no much benefits which is available for the students actually, or even for the researchers. But now we have that. UGC, we have a lot of major research project which is funding, and also there are a lot of international collaboration in ICSSR and UGC. If we look into, there are professional exchange programs by both of these funding bodies. There are a lot of civil society organizations which are funding even for studies, research abroad, all this. But we have to look into those, which opportunities exist, and how we can utilize that, and how we can circulate those information to the needy people, or the people who are looking for such kind of an opportunity. However, quality and effectiveness is something that need to be here. I think because what we do, that's what I said, like we have a lot of opportunities, and we have a lot of UGC major research project have been done. I'm sure for the years long, we are doing that. But what was the outcome of all that? I don't think so. Mainstream literature has all those. Is it an indication for me? Gaps which we see. So that is where we can bring in through, if there is a council which can implement that, or which can enforce that there is something which need to be taught equally across the country, and there is a scope. Of course, in Chinese system, they teach different courses based on their educators' qualification, educators' experiences, that they can introduce it as an elective course, or they can introduce it as an extra course in their education. Other than that, the basic courses are given by the Committee for the Social Work Education, which is actually which is of course headed by the government or the Communist Party of China. So that is where actually a kind of recognition which comes in, and of course it comes as an enforcement which is actually required. Specializations, as I said, we have so many specializations, and where these specialization students go. I know there are medical and psychiatrists who work in HRMs who are working in medical and psychiatry, criminology who study in communities who study in criminology. There is a whole lot of issues which happens, because of course we look for a job opportunity. immediately we get into what we get in the first place, because of course we cannot imagine our graduates to wait for the time, because there is a requirement, they have to feed their families in most of the cases. So we cannot ask them to look for an correct opportunity based on your specialization. So I think so that is also something which we need to look into, and when a council comes into the place, that will work out. And credits, there is a whole lot of issues with the credits once again, like how we follow credits across the country. Even there is like field work related, how many hours, how many days, and what kind of field work we do. All these things across the country, it changes. The region to region, country, place to place, school to school, it entirely changes based on the educators' experiences. So that is something which need to be, as I said, there should be uniqueness, but there should be something which is keeping all people together also, clubbing all things together also. Otherwise, we all stay apart again and nothing will work out there. So the field practicum, which I already explained. So this is what I think my thinking, we have to have a council. And I don't say first we recognize the profession. Of course, if we bring in a council for at least the recognition of education, then it works from there. Because as I said, the connection is coming from the education. First, let us regulate the education, social work education, then let us move to the profession. Because without setting up the things which are actually lying there in education, if we directly go to the profession, I don't think so we will be in a right direction. Because that's what I said, the professionals are created by this educational institution, and the professionals who are going to the practice are the product of these institutions. And we need to make sure that these institutions performs their skill training, their education aspects properly. So that is where the requirement, and that is where the needs which I focus in. And to conclude here, where I'm concluding, I hope I have covered the time which is given to me. So I conclude with like leadership at the national level. Leadership, when I say, I'm not saying that there is no leadership in India, but my understanding here is that to bring in all together again, because I see there is a whole lot of, to be frankly saying, like there is something called, which I always think in Indian context is like there is something called left and right and bright. So we have to work on that bright part of social work. So that is where a leadership is required, and we need to bring in that somebody who can do that as in senior educators who can come together and do that. Even association, I think any national associations which we have, that should take into that position. Profession, as I said, how we influence our own profession, how we, because after our graduation, even after our own excellency in the profession, how we give back to the profession. And I think that's what we need to look back in these 80 years, how we have given back, what we have given back, what is our impact on our profession. That is something which is very, very important, I feel. And also collaboration with global associations. They're actually doing excellent as per my knowledge, both IFSW and IASSW. Even in this time of difficulties, they're doing a whole lot of even knowledge dissemination, not only practice, knowledge dissemination, they're doing actually good. And that's what I said, in that line we have to work, I think, because one for practice and one for education, which of course my teacher who used to say always, we need this differentiation at the national, even in the state level, why can't we have such kind of an associations? Of course, I know that there is a whole lot of things comes with the membership and all those things, but we need to work out that. It is not that difficult, I think, if we prepare a chain system and if we prepare something which is workable solution. And connect a network of educational institutions, which I said in the beginning itself, which we need actually, without which I don't think we will excel in educational aspect of social work, because we have very good educational institutions. There are a lot. out of that 600, whatever I said, we have many good institutions which are doing good in their own way or in their own levels. But what I feel is that good practices need to be replicated across the country, and that requires mentoring, like mentoring of these educational institutions which are so-called forward or so-called established, well-established. They need to take that responsibility of mentoring institutions which are in the early stages, or which are showing a interest in developing the social work education. I don't think so all the 600 will be worth, of course, but there are few of them who are actually making an effort to bring changes in society that need to be picked up, and that need to be mentored with these institutions, which is the need of the hour, which I feel, for the development of social work education and practice both. So with this, I conclude my presentation with a big thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I hope I have brought in at least some things which need to be discussed among us for the betterment of our social work. And I'll be happy to take up questions, or even to hear from other senior educators, which may be adding into these points which I have discussed. And also for the organizers, there is a request. I will not stop screen sharing, because the moment I stop screen sharing, there is some problem in the system and it blocks me out. I think it's okay.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Actually,
Yeah.
various participants have been asking questions in the chat box. If you can check it, it will be good, sir.
Okay. Oh, there are 153 messages. There were some people raised their hand in between also. I think so they wanted to ask questions. I think if they want to ask direct questions, there will be opportunities, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, can you make it now, sir? Because the time till 4 o'clock involves the time for asking questions also for all the participants.
Okay, so how much time we have now for the questions?
Yeah, from now on till 4 o'clock.
So what's
like
the
probably
time?
20 minutes. Yeah, right
Okay.
now it's 3:40 p.m. in here.
Okay. So can we ask the participant to repost their questions, because there are 153 charts. I think. I don't think so I can go through all that. I'll try to pick up some questions from there, but it will be good if participant can retype their questions again.
Sir, I will read out some questions for you.
Yeah.
One question is like, sir, would you tell how a theatre practitioner could work in the field of social work? What is the suggestions and guidance for theatre practitioner to enter in the field? In this field, in this field.
Okay, sorry, I'm not quite sure. Is it a practitioner who is coming from the social work background or a paraprofessional? Can you just clarify that? Anyway, let me take it. I don't think so. Maybe it is like practitioners, how we can work in field. I think it is something which we are already doing it in India, because in practice settings, if we look in, there is a whole lot of things which are happening. But what can I say is that rather than giving a point to the question, what I feel is there is a need for the educational institutions to involve these practitioners in their educational formulation or curriculum or whatever it may be. So that is where you get in as practitioner as an important, so where you can contribute for the development of social work, apart from doing whatever is your given job or your given work, maybe in community, maybe in organization, maybe in an office setting, wherever it is. That is what you do yourself for the salary which you get. Apart from that, to contribute to the profession, I think you need involvement in all these settings, which actually helps the profession. Maybe it is in the associations, maybe it's in the institutional boards, maybe it is in the fieldwork practicums. There are a lot of boards which are constituted for fieldwork practicum. So all these things, I think, which gives a scope for practitioners to bring in their experiences, their lived experiences, and which can contribute to the students. I hope I have given an answer which is
Okay, sir. Thank you. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
And I'm moving to the next question. It's from Ashlyn. What is the specialization in MSW course? What is the importance of specialization in MSW course?
Importance of specialization?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think if you look into actual base of introducing specialization is like we have to have specialized expertness into work in particular area where we get an specializations. Like for example, medical and psychiatry. The people should work in counseling, medical and psychiatry, as psychiatric social workers, health workers, mental health workers, and community. We say they go to community and they work there. Criminology, they work with the criminal setting. This is where specialization comes in. But I think in Indian context, we need to specify it a bit more because we have both specialization and a generic course which coming together, and both the graduates enter the same like workforce or the work stream where there is a whole lot of differences again comes. But importance of specialization is that to make you more expert in that particular area. Because as I said, a person who was educated in medical and psychiatry, of course, he studies social work in the first year, but he cannot do expert in HRM. He can take up a job, I think, but he cannot do, he cannot excel in HRM. So that is something which we cannot expect. And if we do that, then that's what affecting the professional practice of social work.
Okay. Sir, another question is sir, can you tell us about the challenges faced by the social work education, especially the field work during COVID-19 pandemic?
If you ask, I think the major thing is that we have to distance from the community. We don't have the opportunity to go to them, and we have to do everything virtually. So, which is quite problematic, or even which is quite difficult one, I think, because that is where the social workers actually handicapped now, because we have a direct connection with the communities. We have a direct connection with the people, which we cannot do right now. And of course, everywhere across the country, across the globe, social workers are doing their best to address the society, because this is the need also. We cannot like get back from the community, or we cannot say that there is a whole lot of issues we cannot do. This is the requirement where there is a whole lot of issues going up with mental health, suicide issues, and there is a lot of relationship issues and all those things. But that is where social work actually requires its intervention. But at the same time, we cannot do that as a practice which we used to do in the beginning, like before pre-pandemic or before this COVID-19, because we had an entire freedom. Right now, you cannot walk out. You have to get the permission of the people. You have to get the permission of the administration and everything. And how long it's going to be there, we don't know. Exactly, we don't know. And people are ready to accept you. So these are the things. And also the major thing, I think, keeping yourself safe. Keeping yourself safe in both mental health, I think health. So because it is quite stressful also. So that is the major challenge, and working in line with our principles and values, where we are trying to do that is quite challenging in a new normal situation, or in a situation which is not normally experienced by us.
Yes, you are right, sir. Sir, one more question is from a research part. Can you explain the path of research in social work in simple steps?
Parts of research in social work, I don't get the proper question, I think, because if it is specified as because if it is given as a topic or something, I think I would have been clear to give answer, because steps in research is the he or she is asking about how to conduct a research, or he's asking about because
I
I'm
think
not clear.
she's asking about the simple steps for doing research.
I think it is whatever the methodology we study, because it depends on the topic, I think, because which you take up. Of course, studying the background literature and developing your own hypothesis for your study, then testing that, and of course, whatever the method you follow, qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, whatever it may be. So testing that hypothesis, and of course, bringing out your findings and then discussing it with the available literature in the field, and bringing out a solid finding out of that, like recommendation out of that. So this is where we do the research. I think I tried to explain it in a very simple way, because it's a so broad question. I don't think it's properly I can explain it for I don't know, maybe if it is research writing or something, I don't know. Anyway, I hope I have given an answer for that question.
Okay, one more. I think it's last question.
Huh.
So many. It's over, I think. Lot of. It's over, sir.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions, I think, but we won't get that, right? Once you log in from there, will you get those questions? Once you end this.
One more is there. What are the possible improvements that can be done concerning the field practicum?
The right present situation. I think, as I said, along with the complete education standardization, we need to do social work field education also, because major thing may be setting the boundaries, like what we have to do across the country, what social workers need to do in field work, because right now there is a whole lot of differences which is practiced institution to institution. Let us forget about the end to end of the country, institutions to institution. That is something which need to be set out first. So and also the basic activities which can be done by the students in the field. So what in the first year, what in the second year, based on specializations once again. That is where the requirement first. If you ask the prioritization, I think that will be the first.
Okay, sir, one more question. Current period, how we can conduct research in the mental health area? Is there any platform?
I think I was reading about the present how people do research. Of course, everything is virtually, because I think online data collection and everything. But if you say mental health, I think online data collection, giving a questionnaire and all those things are not working out there. But I think something people are doing is diary keeping. So because who is your respondents, diary keeping. That is something which is actually useful. And also, I think most important is the reflection of our own is the best research which you can do. I think reflecting on your own response to this, rather than going to a respondent to get their data at this difficult time. I think it is better to look at our own reflections, and of course, whatever the possible extent we can do it for the online. But of course, there is a lot of issues with privacy. There is a lot of issues with like how you maintain ethics within that online platforms. All those things are quite important. Of course, you are giving me a toughest topic like mental health, because any other you can do it quite easily, but mental health is quite, again, stigmatized, and which is quite difficult one. Hope there are people who are doing that, but the only possible option is virtual with some possible and utmost care with ethical issues.
Yes. Then
but I suggest always keeping the research which is not important away at this moment, which is actually required. We have to ask ourselves, like, is it really very important? Is it really we need to do something right now? So can't we wait for that the situation to be okay? So if it is that emergency, then we can find out the solutions and go for alternatives. Otherwise, I think it's better to keep it away for some time.
Yes, sir. One more question. What will be the role of council in education and how can that be formed?
Yeah, that's what I explained in my last but before slide, I think. So what is the role of council in education, social work education is majorly, as I said, we need a regulating body to regulate the education. Because as I said, there is a whole lot of differences which we face now is because we don't have that regulatory body. Because nobody is following or nobody is obeying nobody in that situation, because we don't have that right. UGC doesn't have a social work particularly branch for something which is dedicated for social work, of course. That is where UGC issued a notice saying that you are not a professional course, of course. And we could not do much in that area also, because there is nothing that you have a approachable setting right now. That is actually need to be bring in, because associations are not given right to do this. Actually, association cannot do that. Associations are group of people who are coming to influence something or to bring some changes, but they cannot do these structural changes. This is the structural changes which we need, and that can be done only through a council, and that is required to mainstream or to bring some kind of stability in the education. And that will definitely take us to the professionalization of the profession or recognition of the profession.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think all the doubts are over. There is no more questions.
Yeah.
So I request Milan to.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And thank you very much, Dr. Rajendra, sir. Am I audible, ma'am? Am I audible?
Yes, Milan, you can proceed.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Actually, thank you very much, Dr. Rajendra, sir, for your radiantly valuable and remarkable words. I hope it has given a major impact to all the participants. Now, last but not the least, I warmly invite the faculty coordinator of the webinar, Ms. Tolly Thomas, for providing the vote of thanks. So please proceed, Tolly, Miss. Tolly, Miss, you may proceed, please.
Able to hear me?
Hello? It's getting
Yes, Tolly,
lagged
we
in
can
between.
hear you. You can proceed.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Actually, still here is some network issues. That's why. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. So, respected resource person of the webinar, Dr. Rajendra Baikady, sir, respected HOD, Mrs. Elizabeth Alexander, all the eminent personalities present here, and my dear participants. So, it's my privilege to propose. I would like to thank our honorable resource person, Dr. Rajendra Baikady, for taking time off from his hectic schedule to be with us today. This speech was really inspiring and will guide us for.
I think there is some technical.
Yes, I think she is having some technical issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Sir,
much, Doctor.
now am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, from network issues. So I thank Dr. Rajendra Baikady for his support and encouragement to our department, which eventually led to the webinar. Then I thank Dr. Baikady, the principal of Salias College, Mannanam, for all possible support and guidance towards organizing this webinar, and for the valuable speech during the beginning of the session. I also thank Father Dr. CMI, Vice Principal of K College, Mannanam, for joining with us and for his words. I would also like to thank the Principal of Kadambari Memorial College in Dempa, Dr. Shakti Prabha, the Dean of Hindustan College, Chennai, and Dr. Mathi Kanamala, etc., and all other delegates for their valuable participation here. I thank all the participants from various countries and various fields for their keen interest and enthusiastic participation in the webinar. Last but least, I acknowledge your unwavering support received from our HOD, Mrs. Elizabeth Alexander, my co-faculties, Mr. Prishad K. Mohan, Mr. Rajesh Sudharshivan, and Mr. Jason MC. All my dear student coordinators, Mr. Milan, Ms. Catherine, Mr. Christy, Ms. Devi, Ms. Ashin, and Ms. Berlin, and my students, without whose help this conference would not have taken place. I once again thank everyone whose contribution has made this conference a successful one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Toli. Thank you so much, dear Rajendra sir, for your valuable time which is spending with us, and thank you for your knowledge which you shared with us. And we will call you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ptolemus, for your wonderful words. Now we are moving to the end of the web. And so, as a student coordinator, I do hope that this webinar has brought a highly effective and informative session to all the participants. And as we all know that the world is currently facing a huge pandemic, so above all, I immensely thank the Almighty God for giving us this amazing opportunity to conduct this webinar in such an efficient and effective manner. Once again, I thankfully appreciate each and every individual who has organized and attended this amazing webinar and made it a successful one. Thank you all. Stay safe. Bye.